What if I told you that in 2003, a team of engineers convinced hundreds of investors to fund mobile tower installation across India, collected crores in installation fees, and even convinced telecom companies that they were building real infrastructure? The towers existed, the documentation was perfect, the entire business model was a sophisticated fraud that exploited the telecom boom. This is the story of the National Telecom Infrastructure scam, a fraud so technically sophisticated that it took telecommunication experts 3 years to realize that legitimate looking mobile towers were part of an elaborate investment fraud. In 2002, India's mobile revolution was just beginning. Mobile operators were desperately seeking infrastructure partners to rapidly expand network coverage. The government was promoting telecom infrastructure development, and investors were eager to participate in the mobile boom that everyone knew was coming. Suresh Agarwal was a telecommunications engineer who had worked with major mobile operators for 5 years. He understood every aspect of tower installation, from site surveys and government approvals to equipment installation and revenue sharing agreements with telecom companies. But Suresh had noticed a gap in the market that nobody was talking about. The complexity of telecom infrastructure made it nearly impossible for investors to verify the actual revenue generating potential of individual mobile towers. This gap would become the foundation of one of India's most sophisticated infrastructure fraud. In 2003, an engineer creates National Telecom Infrastructure, promising investors guaranteed return from mobile tower installations. Each tower requires 5 to 10 lakh investment and promises 15 lakh rupees monthly rental income from these telecom towers. The towers are real, the installments are professional, the telecom companies do use them, but the revenue sharing agreements are fake. The rental payment come from other investors' money. The entire business model is a massive Ponzi scheme disguised as a legitimate infrastructure development. What makes this scam brilliant was the infrastructure was completely real. Suresh's team actually installed professional quality mobile towers with proper equipments following all technical specifications required by telecom operators. The towers looked, functioned, and operated exactly like legitimate telecom infrastructures. The documentation was flawless. Because Suresh knew exactly what real telecom contracts looked like, he created site lease agreements, equipment installation certificate, and revenue sharing contracts that were indistinguishable from legitimate telecom industry documents. The towers were installed in locations where they actually provided network coverage, so telecom operators genuinely used them. The fraud wasn't in the infrastructure itself, it was in the financial agreement that were promised to investors. Understood that the telecom infrastructure was the perfect investment vehicle for people who wanted to participate in India's mobile boom but lacked technical expertise. Mobile towers seemed like safe, government backed investments that would generate steady rental income for decades. His investor presentations were masterful. He would show potential investors existing towers that his company had installed, provide detailed technical specification, and demonstrate how telecom operators were already using the infrastructure. Everything investors saw was completely real and impressive. By 2005, National Telecom Infrastructure had installed over 200 mobile towers across 6 states, collected 25 crores from investors, and was recognized by telecom operators as a legit infrastructure partner. The towers are providing actual network services to millions of mobile users, but the revenue model was entirely fraudulent. While telecom companies paid standard infrastructure fees, these amounts were for less than what investors had been promised. The guaranteed returns were being paid using new investors' money, creating a sophisticated Ponzi scheme backed by real infrastructure. The financial structure was so incredibly sophisticated, so it had created multiple subsidiary companies that appeared to handle different aspects of tower installation and management. Investors received professional looking profit statements showing revenue from multiple telecom operators. When investors visited these towers, they would see legitimate infrastructure providing actual telecom services. The tower had proper signages showing partnerships with major mobile operators. Everything looked completely legitimate because the infrastructure was real and functional. The genius was in the revenue model deception. Suresh had convinced investors that telecom operators paid much higher rental fees than they actually did. The real revenue from towers was used to maintain the infrastructure and pay some investors' return, while most promised returns came from new investment money. At its peak, the operation had raised 50 crores from over 1,000 investors who believed they owned shares in the legitimate mobile tower infrastructure. The towers were generating actual revenue from telecom operators, but far less than investors had been promised. The sophistication was remarkable. Real infrastructure, genuine telecom partnership, professional equipment installation, and legitimate government approvals. Yet, the entire financial model was fraudulent, making it one of the most complex investment frauds in Indian history. The scam collapsed in 2006 when telecom operators began consolidating their infrastructure partnerships and conducting detailed audits of revenue sharing agreements. The audits revealed that National Telecom Infrastructure was claiming revenue agreements that didn't match actual contracts. Investigation showed that while the towers were real and functional, the promised revenue streams were largely fictional. Suresh Agarwal had created an elaborate investment fraud using legitimate infrastructure and collaterals, but had fraudulently mispresented the financial returns that infrastructure could generate. The case was particularly complex because investors had actually received some returns, the infrastructure was genius and valuable, and telecom operators had legitimate business relationship with the company. Determining exactly what was fraudulent versus what was legitimate required extensive forensic accounting. Suresh was arrested in 2006, but the case highlighted vulnerabilities in infrastructure investment that persist today. The combination of technical complexities, government backing, and legitimate industry partnerships made it extremely difficult for investors to verify actual revenue potential. What makes this story remarkable is how it used real infrastructure to create investment fraud. Unlike purely financial scams, this fraud created actual value in form of functional telecom infrastructure but used that legitimacy to support fraudulent financial promises. The case led to stricter regulations of infrastructure investment schemes and better disclosure requirements for telecom tower revenue sharing. It also demonstrated how complex technical industries could be exploited to create investment frauds that were much harder to detect than traditional financial scams. The mobile tower installation scam remains one of the most sophisticated infrastructure frauds in Indian history, showing how legitimate business operations can be used as foundation for elaborate investment deceptions that fool even industry experts. Today, infrastructure investment schemes are subject to much more righteous financial verification, but the fundamental challenge remains. How do you verify the revenue potential of complex technical infrastructures without deep industry expertise? Suresh Agarwal's scam provides a blueprint that unfortunately influenced infrastructure.